Shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We're up to page 165 of volume 2 of Rabbi Victor Miller's New Translation and Commentary of Duties of the Mind, and we're at part 8 of chapter 4, which is entitled The Seventh Category of Wisdom. So let's get straight into it. The seventh category of the subjects that have to be studied are the signs of Hashem's wisdom, which are seen in the way the Torah and the Kukim, that is the laws, are arranged. When the author says Torah, he is referring to the attitudes of the Torah as well as the Torah narratives, which are intended to serve as models of behavior. Now, there's two things that strike me about that sentence. And the first thing is the attitudes of the Torah. Have you ever stopped to think about what the overarching attitude of the Torah is? Is the Torah always to be Mr. Nice Guy? Is that what it's teaching us to do, to always sort of turn the other cheek and give everybody a smile and be everyone's friend? Or are there occasions that to an outsider, somebody who doesn't know the context of what's happening, Hashem may well demand of us things that look questionable? And the first thing that comes to mind is the Akedah, that is the offering of Yitzhak. To an outsider, even though that event didn't transpire as it was meant to, Hashem at the last minute told Abraham to not do what he was going to do. But the concept and the idea behind it still remains. And we do see instances throughout the Tanakh, not just the Torah, where it appears that Hashem is rewarding very questionable acts, such as in the case of an act of homicide by Zimri, who burst into a tent and impaled 2 people on a spear. It's very, very interesting, and it's something that we should always consider, that this is not always about sort of being the Mr. Nice Guy as a person maybe pre-thinks. So that's extremely interesting. The Torah and the Kukim are the means by which... I missed a sentence. When he says Kukim, he's referring to the laws of the Torah. I don't think I read that sentence. The Torah and the Kukim are the means by which we serve the Creator. Through observing the Torah and the Kukim with energy, those people who are diligent in them are able to achieve happiness in this world and the reward of the world to come at the end. So there's 2 rewards. It's not always about how many people think that you live a life of denial and then enter into a paradise, a paradise, or an orchard. But in many cases, a person can enjoy a lot of the fruits of this world and also receive a lot of benefits and upgrades in Shemaim. Okay, so there is a word, bikirot, which means at the end, which is used by the author in this part of the work, and that is in reference to the Olam Haba, the world to come. We find a similar usage in the words of Bilam: let me die the death of the righteous, and let my end be like his. In other words, let my end be like Israel's. What did he mean by my end? Did Bilam wish to die? No, he was envious of the reward of the afterlife which is promised to Israel, and he expressed the wish that he could be worthy of sharing their lot. Bilam was jealous of Israel, for all Israel had a share in the world to come. And so we see this in quite a few instances of wicked people that we come across in the narrative, seeing that there is a special blessing upon Israel, and they interfere with the nation to, in some way, subvert or supplant this nation and take these blessings for themselves. What a lot of people don't realize, if you are a special people, if you've been set aside as being special, then that requires a greater level of responsibility. And not everybody has the ability to live up to the expectations of being set apart. And so in many ways, by you perhaps remaining where you are in whatever station you are in life, in some cases you can actually be better off than trying to improve your situation which will cause you to have far greater things to juggle around. So you have to be very careful if you want to progress when your current lifestyle is something that you can quite easily manage. This doesn't mean that you can't improve your lifestyle, or you can't do nice things, but in some cases people aim too high. And so this doesn't mean don't aim high at all, but know what as Dirty Harry said, to quote the famous Clint Eastwood series, know what your limitations are and be realistic. And this doesn't mean, Jason said, I'm not saying anything. I'm reading this wisdom to you from people that are smarter than me. But the idea is that you to have a sober judgment of yourself. Note, the author now elaborates on the reward for Torah observance in this world and in the world to come. The reward of happiness in this world comes in three major ways, which will be discussed in detail below. Now, we're going to quote here Yeshayahu, which is Isaiah 55:2. And in English it says, "Listen well to me, and you will eat well with happiness, and your soul will delight in rich food." However, the Hebrew text has the word shemiyah, which is listen, and it's repeated twice. Listen, listen. Translated as listen well in English in most translations. Thus, the prophet is talking to people who are energetic, as mentioned earlier, diligent in carrying out the principles of the Torah, the specific actions that we are commanded to do by the Kukim, and also heeding the Torah counsel, which is called Etzah. Etzah is the advice and guidance as we should be thinking, which the Torah gives through its stories and attitudes. And the more we become familiar with the attitude of the Torah, the more we are able to utilize better decision making that accords with Torah principles, even if we don't know what a given halakha is and we're in a kind of a situation where we have to think quickly. If we practice diligence, the prophet is assuring us a happy life. Of course, we are unable to see the future happiness of the Olam Haba, but we can see accomplishments in this world through a life of Torah. So whatever you're doing and whoever you are, I would encourage you to get a little bit more serious, or depending on who you are, get a lot more serious in setting aside various Sepharim, various books on topics that are critical for every human being, and start to familiarize yourself with these subjects and get them on a high rotation and learn them daily, even if they're only for 5 or 10 minutes, and set yourself a goal of finishing 1 or 2 or maybe even 4 pages a day on that topic. So for example, you may want to study the laws of Shimurat Halashon, the laws of clean speech, and so you would go out and purchase a book, hopefully by the Chofetz Chaim, and begin to study those laws. Because a lot of what's gotten us into trouble throughout the course of our life is our mouth, is our tongue. And so if we are found learning how to speak in a way that's correct, even if we have failure after failure, the Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, can see that we are actually putting in a real earnest effort to actually improve ourselves in the realm of speech. And this is very important, because to tell you the truth, like an audio teaching in the morning for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 50 minutes, sometimes they go for, and a YouTube video on Torah topics isn't ultimately going to be enough. It's something really to whet a person's appetite and get them to begin to savor the sweetness of the Torah that perhaps wasn't such a desire in them before. And this is something that requires a lot of prayer and a lot of effort to do, to continually ask that the Almighty sweeten the Torah in your mouth, which is an expression. And so this is the goal, to really start to get serious about matters of Torah observance that affect behavior. Because I was reading something very, very interesting today in this book here. This book was given to me by a brother who I'm very blessed to know. And it's by Rabbi Shalom Arush, and it's translated by Rabbi Lazar Brody. Rabbi Lazar Brody, I think I pronounced it right. And it's called The Garden of Peace. And it's about, it's for men, and it's a marital guide for men and men only. There's one also for women, and I don't know the name of that, but if you're married or looking at getting married, I recommend you getting this book. I've nearly finished it. I'm going to do a review on it soon. And I came across this, and this is just an absolute bombshell. And just by clicking on this video alone and having me show you this is worth whatever else on the video you're going to find. And it's on page 304. And it's under the header, and it's a few paragraphs under the header, self-correction. And this is by Rabbi Chaim Vital, whose teachings come from the Arizal, which is Rabbi Yitzhak Luria. Some of you may be familiar with who those people are. They're big, big, big players in the Torah world, Kabbalists. And it says in Rabbi Yitzhak Luria's Gates of Holiness, which is a book that's available, it's very expensive. In fact, I think I have it. There you go. I've got it. And I read this a while ago, and this is in this book. This is how bad my memory is. And so I probably have to reread this book. But this book's it's a thin book. It's about $60 or $70, and it's just a paperback. But it's like a bucket of ice cold water over the head. It's not fun to read, but it's very beneficial to read, and you'll feel blessed for having read it. But it's a book that you're going to come away from sighing a lot, and that's a good thing. So this is what I'm about to quote to you is from this book, and I never want you to forget what I'm about to say, and I never want to forget it too, which I obviously have. Let's hope I don't forget it again. Bad character traits are worse than actual transgressions. Bad character traits are worse than actual transgressions. Hashem wants us to be more exacting about our character traits than with adhering to all the positive and negative commandments, for which good character traits, keeping the commandments is easy. For with good character traits, keeping the commandment is easy. I'll read that again because I've completely botched it. Sorry about that. Bad character traits are worse than actual transgressions. Hashem wants us to be more exacting about our character traits than with adhering to all the positive and negative commandments, for with good character traits, keeping the commandments is easy. End of quote. So that's why the commandments that you're responsible for, because everybody's different, have been so difficult for you to keep because you're not working on your character traits. And how much are character traits addressed in most congregations? Zero. Or 1.0001%. And it has to change. And who's responsible for that? The shepherds. So who's going to be punished if that isn't turned around? Well, the shepherds first, then everybody else. So we have to get our heads around this concept. We have to really be serious about improving our behavior, improving our thoughts, duties of the mind. That's why we're going through this book. Improving our speech, improving our actions. Now I have to remember where I was up to. If we practice diligence, the Prophet is assuring us a happy life. Of course, we are unable to see the future happiness of the Olam Haba, but we can see accomplishments in this world through a life of Torah. Such accomplishments are not only for here, but they are things that we will take with us forever. This idea will be discussed at greater length further on. So yes, you can take things with you into the afterlife, but they're not physical things, they're not material things, they are good deeds. They are mitzvot. And so you can go into the next world with a mountain of mitzvot, or you can go into the next world with a mountain of avorot, of sins. It's up to you. It's up to you what you want to do. And if you are guilty of speaking Lashon Hara, evil speech, then, which is almost impossible for you to do complete tshuva for, because you don't know who read that comment that you put under that post that was sarcastic toward that person, or whatever. It may be you said something about something that happened in that person's past and you've exposed them, and you've forgotten where the comment is. You couldn't find it now anyway. And 30,000 people read that comment. And so it's like shaking a pillow at the top of a clock tower in the wind, and then being expected to go and pick up all the feathers from around the town after having shaken them at the top of a clock tower, which is a very popular midrash in the Jewish world, a story. And so all the bad things you've said about that person, according to Jewish thought, they automatically, retroactively get you all your mitzvot, and you get all their avarot, all their sins. So this is quite alarming, and if it doesn't send a chill down your spine, then check your pulse. And this isn't nice to hear, but it's important for you to hear. You have a family member, perhaps it's a spouse, and you find yourself complaining about them to someone. And that someone can say what you said about your partner to anyone else, and they can say something to someone else. And it is like a wildfire that you now no longer have control over. And it's impossible, virtually impossible, for you to do complete tshuva and pick up every one of those feathers out of that pillow. It would take you months, and even then you're not going to pick up all the feathers. As it says, quoting Isaiah 55:3, so this is the next verse, "Incline your ear and come to me, hear, and your soul shall live." Incline your ear and come to me and hear, and your soul shall live. End of quote. Don't just listen, but incline your ear in order to hear well. Come to me, make it your business in life to try to get as close to me as possible. This promise primarily refers to the Olam Haba, but it also includes the Olam Hazeh, the current world. Okay, so this is 3 ways to happiness. This is part 9. The author proceeds to elaborate on the 3 major ways in which Torah observance results in rewards of happiness in this world. The author describes 2 of these ways explicitly and implies the third. The first way in which we can receive a reward of happiness is through the behavior of the world around us. Hashem has created the world in such a way that it responds to the way we live. If we observe the Torah, the world responds to our actions and rewards us. The practices of the nations among which we live is an example of this. So the rising anti-Semitism is Hashem telling his people that he is not pleased with their backbiting and their infighting and their baseless hatred that they have toward one another. And so, and them thinking that they're better than some other group. And so what Hashem does is he mirrors the behavior of Yisrael and all those associated with the nations, Noahites, righteous Gentiles, and he puts it up as a mirror by reflecting that disdain that we have for each other in the nations turning on us. And so the way to overturn that is to drop all the negative feelings we have for other groups and people. And listen, some of the misgivings and the grievances you have toward individuals and people may have some grounds. Be that as it may, holding on to that animosity is just eating you away. It's not doing you any favors. And if you continue to do so, it will contribute to another Holocaust. Because Hashem doesn't want you to act like that and operate just with that negative feeling toward your neighbor. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you want to really combat anti-Semitism, we need to change our attitudes towards one another within the Commonwealth of Israel. Whether you are part of a different sect of Jews, or you are a Noahide, and maybe there's things that have happened with certain people, former friends, you've got issues with them for whatever reason, you need to let that go. You need to let that go and wish them all the very best. Because all of us are in this together. I mean that. All of us are in this together. So don't walk around thinking like you're better than anyone else, because the reality is you're not. And if that's your mindset, you're guaranteed not to be better than them by thinking that you are. Dependent on this are the regulations by which the nations conduct themselves and the benefits of these regulations. What the nations do in providing for the benefit of society is part of the reward that comes from observing the Torah. For instance, we benefit when we live in society that maintains law and order. We benefit if the laws of the state prohibit immorality, fraud, and the sale of contaminated foods and drugs. There was a time in America when pornography was outlawed. The same was true in communist Russia. Crime was severely punished in Russia and Eastern Europe under the communist system. We also benefit if we enforce building safety codes and traffic regulations. We benefit from all these practices as part of our reward for being diligent in the ways of Torah. So if you can see the world unraveling before your very eyes, and things just sort of literally coming apart at the seams, then look no further than the mirror, because all these things are happening because you're doing them to yourself and within your community. This is not a comfortable message to hear, but it's absolutely crucial to hear. And my hat's off to you, so to speak, for clicking on this video and staying with me and listening to this, because we all need to hear it. Of course, when we are undeserving, the laws appear to have the opposite effect, for they are then designed to persecute us. In truth, even when the nations legislated that Jews should live in ghettos, it was a tremendous benefit for them, because it allowed them to live in a way that was insular from the host nation. And so there was less chance of assimilation. The Gentile neighbors were boorish and relatively uncivilized. They were drunk every Saturday night. Today it is difficult to believe, but that was the way the United States government introduced prohibition. It was because at the end of the week, when the Gentiles came home with their wages, they got drunk. All over the country, people were shouting, fighting, and beating their wives. In such a society, Jews were much better off in a ghetto. In effect, putting us in a ghetto was for our own protection. Also, there was the added benefit that we were insulated from the neighbors, and so we didn't learn their bad ways. The author explains below that the relationship of the world to man is like that of a slave and its master. As the master goes, so goes the slave. If people follow the ways of the Torah, they gain the benefits of the Torah. So you're only going to gain the benefits of the Torah if you follow the Torah. But if you're going to kind of turn the Torah on and off, then your benefits will kind of be like a tap that sort of spits and doesn't work sometimes. And so you don't, it's annoying. It's an inconvenience. You get up in the morning, you turn the tap on and no water comes out. And then all of a sudden a huge gush of water comes out and then it stops. And it's like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? Hashem then causes those benefits to bring more benefits, and that is beneficial to the entire civilization around us. So we have to look inwardly, and we have to start in areas where we know we can rectify with little effort first, and then progressively make larger incremental changes in our life. Now, this might be spending too much time on an iPhone and having too many social media applications that are distracting you from a myriad of things, and possibly they're even interfering with your personal life and your work life. And so, first of all, delete these apps off the phone and keep the apps that you need. Maybe you want to keep in touch with your children, or there is a sick family member in another country. I get that. But you want to regulate how you're using this hugely beneficial piece of technology, which the way it's being used is the chief reason people are experiencing difficulties in their lives. So your phone will either kill you or it'll help you, and it's up to you to choose which one it's going to do. These regulations and practices of the nations stand for them in the place of the Torah, but only in worldly things. The nations practice a superficial form of decency that serves them as a substitute for the Torah. However, these laws and rules of conduct do not earn them a place in the Olam Haba. Included in such rules of conduct are restrictions on pornography, drugs, crime, and public displays of lewdness, immorality, from which we benefit. If we do our best to observe the Torah, then these constructive practices of the nations will also be given to us. You have a duty to thank Hashem for the benefits that you received, and so from time to time when you say, we are gratefully thank you, in the Shemona Esrei, the standing Amidah, you should have in mind to thank Hashem for the fact that there is such a thing as a police department. People not too long ago were calling about defunding the police, which is the most insane thing I've ever heard. As soon as a house gets robbed or a bike gets stolen or somebody gets assaulted, the first person you call is the police, even if you like them or loathe them. To organize a police force is a major undertaking. To operate it is a major expense for the government. You must thank Hashem for motivating and inspiring the government officials to do this. You should also be grateful for the ambulances and the hospitals with emergency treatment facilities. Not only that, but ambulances are given the right of way, thereby speeding the transfer of people who need medical attention. You can't just take these things for granted. You need to give thanks to Hashem regularly for these features of our society, which aren't as prevalent in less wealthy countries. You should also be grateful that there are firehouses with fire engines. Having an army is a truly major expense, but it may be needed to put down insurgents. There has been times when riots occurred and the army stood ready to shoot looters. The mere knowledge that such a force was available to the authorities discourages the wider elements of society from rioting. You are expected to recognize all of these practices of the nations and to thank Hashem for them. It has already been said that the status of the natural environment is in comparison to the Torah, is comparable to a servant in relation to his master. Because all the forces of the environment in controlling the world act in complementing the Torah. So ultimately what the author is saying here is that you're creating the world around you. How you act is going to ultimately determine what your environment's going to be like. So if you can continue to do the wrong thing, then the environment that you are going to be in is going to be a wrong environment, an environment that is eroded and is like the Wild West. A master is the one who has the role of general supervision, but when it comes to carrying out his wishes, he needs agents to do his bidding. Hashem supervises us with his Torah, and therefore the Torah contains all the great principles and the ideals by which the world should function. Just checking my camera is still on. However, we cannot always implement these principles by ourselves. We need police, we need firemen, we need emergency medical services. We also need laws to protect our children from molesters and from pornographers. All of these aspects of society are like agents or servants in the service of the Torah. These agents complement the Torah and serve its wishes if we observe the Torah. So if you are going to observe the Torah, and I'm not talking observing the Torah that you don't need to observe or it's not applicable for you to observe, but observe the Torah that is the baseline requirement of you to observe in your capacity. So what I mean by that is, do you have a conscious plan of how you are choosing to think? Or do you just think about anything? Whenever you want, however you want. Or you just say things enough for you to get away with. And if you could get away with more, you would say more. Or do you say things in a way that has empathy that has etiquette, that has tact, and encourages a person and brings the best out of a person, or are you somebody that complains all the time? Where do you go? What do you spend your time doing? Do you sit and just doom scroll, as they say, the new saying? It's been around for a while now, doom scrolling, and flick through Netflix, looking for something? What are you looking for? You spend hours. What are you looking for? You're looking for anything but the truth. You're looking for, and the more you look down the dark, dank alleys, the more you spend in those alleys. And the more the Torah looks foreign to you. The Torah looks foreign to you. All of these aspects of society are like agents or servants in the service of the Torah. These agents complement the Torah and serve its wishes if we observe the Torah. So do the Torah that you know is applicable to you. If you're a butcher, then there's a whole host of ordinances and laws, kukim, that are incumbent upon you to know and learn. If you're somebody that works in a dry cleaning shop, there's things that pertain to you that don't pertain to somebody who, works as a building contractor. And so find out what it is. What's the ethical path of me being a car mechanic? One of the professions that it's so easy to rob people because, most people don't have a clue about cars. And so a mechanic can pretty much make up whatever price he wants most of the time. In speaking of the natural environment, the author is not referring to the nations. He is speaking about everything in the world, including human behavior. When we conduct ourselves as the Torah requires, all of nature, including the nature of the human body and the nature of society, will respond more beneficially to us. So if you eat the right foods, just on a base level, if you eat the right foods, you're going to be healthier. And if you're going to say a bracha on the appropriate bracha on the food, and you're going to say the bracha hamazon, you're going to say the blessing after meals, and you're going to maybe take some time before you eat meat and dairy, have a nice gap in between if you're Orthodox, if you're a Jew. That's going to be beneficial. Look at the rate of people who get cancer in Orthodox Jewish communities and compare it to all the other demographics. It's unbelievable. And you've got this Tzaddikim, modern day pious ones, who eat not much more than bread and water and live into their 90s. And it's got health buffs and nutritionists stumped to this very day. They don't eat all this protein and all these other things. They eat not much more than bread and water and maybe have a meal on Shabbat. And they live into their 90s. And they have very minimal to no health issues throughout their life. In speaking of the natural environment, the author is not referring to the nations. He is speaking about everything in the world, including human behavior. When we conduct ourselves as the Torah requires, all of nature, including the nature of the human body, the nature of society, will respond more beneficially to us. We find a model for this concept in the lives of the patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. The Torah states that we were blessed with everything, that we're blessed with everything, of everything, and of everything. That's what it says. Indicating that they had great wealth and all comforts of the Olam Hazeh. Not only was Abraham extremely wealthy, he was a prince of Elohim, according to Genesis 23:6. A highly honored and distinguished person, the world responded positively to the patriarchs, but it was Hashem who caused it to be so. People will certainly live longer if they restrain their temper. If they don't become involved in machloket, in quarrels, they will be happier in their family life and in their relationships with neighbors. People will be healthier if they don't yield to the lures of liquor and drugs. If we heed the Torah and live as it prescribes, we will be physically healthier and we will be more successful in making a living, and we will be more successful in our family relationships. A lot of people are poor. A lot of people are really struggling, and they've been struggling for a long time. And so you have to stop at some point and say, what am I doing for me to continue to be poor? Am I lazy? Maybe I am. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're doing everything you can and you're still struggling to make ends meet. maybe there is a default attitude in you that you deserve things. Maybe you think you deserve things that you don't. And that's causing you to develop a predisposition of having opportunism, meaning that you ask if something is available for free. Is there anywhere where I can get that for free? And this is a comment that I hear every so often, and it's a comment that is pregnant with so much meaning, because it tells me, especially when it comes to matters of Torah, that that person perhaps doesn't have a correct understanding of the value of the Torah compared to a car, compared to a house, compared to a job, compared to whatever material you can think of. And so that would be one of the last things that would come to mind, where you can get some sort of wisdom for free. If you think, oh, the Torah should be for free, you're kidding yourself. Because if the Torah is a treasure, you'll do whatever you can to acquire that treasure. Back in the day, you had to pay to attend yeshiva. You still do. What I mean back in the day, I'm talking biblical times. But even today, you can't just go to yeshiva for free. So you can't be expected to learn for free. Now, let me tell you something that you're not going to like. If you are not paying someone who is teaching you Torah, and you are learning Torah, then it is debatable whether the Beit Din in Shemayim, the heavenly court, are going to attribute to you theft. Meaning that if all the Torah that you're learning is for free, number one, the wisdom that you're learning is not going to stick to you. It just won't. It could arguably be why things don't keep working out for you. But number two, how is that any different from stealing? Now, if you're buying Torah books, there you go, you're paying for it. You've got to at least pay for the costs, and at least pay something extra to enable the person that's producing the Sefarim, the Sefer, the books, to actually earn a little bit extra so he can keep going and make a livelihood and buy his own provisions. But you've got to stop being one of these people that wants to get everything for free. Because as soon as I hear it from time to time and I go, stop right there. What do you mean where you can get it for free? What do you think, this is not worth anything? Do you think this is just good to know? What would you pay to attend a yeshiva and to have your own teacher with you 24/7 working with you? There should be nothing that you wouldn't pay to get that. But you still have these people, I'm just, if I can get it for free, I can just read it online. Stop reading stuff online. Go out and get a book. Stop being reliant on electricity for your learning. Because when the power goes, and it will go, it's just a matter of when, you need to be able to continue to learn by candlelight. Just because the wheels come off is no excuse for you to stop learning. Even when you're a refugee and you're on the run, you're still expected to learn. Wherever you can. People will certainly live longer if they restrain their temper, stay away from quarreling. People will be healthier if they don't yield to the lures of liquor and drugs. If you heed the Torah and live as it prescribes, you will be physically healthier, you'll be more successful in making a living, and you'll be more successful in your family relationships. In the same way, people will be happier if they follow the lifestyle dictated by the Torah, the Torah causes them to be rewarded. The Torah causes them to be rewarded. We also need to be aware of the third aspect of rewards that the author is hinting at here. When people observe the Torah and they learn self-control, there it is again, self-control. Even with the kukim, the mitzvot, whose purpose we don't understand, we learn self-discipline. That is a tremendous benefit. For example, we don't understand basar v'kulav, the restrictions against eating meat and dairy together, but the fact that we cannot eat whatever we want teaches a Jew to control himself from childhood on. So the whole idea of fasting is for you to exercise the muscle of self-control. Thus, the Jewish child can more easily say no to somebody who is trying to tempt him to take drugs or behave in some other destructive manner. A non-Jewish child who is brought up without the Torah's restrictions doesn't have this benefit. For such a child, there is no. Everything is permissible. The fact that Jews learn to say no to themselves is a tremendous benefit in every aspect of life. When I pass fruit stores, I often notice that even well-educated and well-dressed people will pass by and take small items like peanuts, cherries, and grapes and eat them. Although the store owners don't like it, they are reluctant to say anything. However, they look at the offenders with annoyance, and so these people are actually stealing. Once or twice, I tried telling them that they are doing something wrong, but they looked at me as if I was crazy. In contrast, a frum Jew who learned the Torah knows that he may not take grapes or an apricot off the stand to eat. He knows that a person who does so is a thief, as the Gemara says, quoting Tractate Sanhedrin 8a, a case involving a mere peruta, a small coin, should be regarded as of the same importance as involving 100 shekels. It's the thin end of the wedge. You start stealing a grape or a nut, you'll keep going. Over time, it might take a year, it might take 5 years. Unfortunately, there are frum Jews who don't care about anything. Such Jews can be just as bad as anyone else, but people who are sincere and conscientious about what the Torah requires of them would never take a peanut without paying for it. And this also goes for people who get a trolley and they load up their trolley with groceries and they take a soda and they open and they drink the soda while they're walking around. And then by the time they get to the register, they put through the empty soda can or bottle and pay for it. It's just not a good look. Don't do it. It's just not a good look. People do it and they're like, oh, look what I'm doing. I'm so cool. It's just absolute insanity. Don't drink it or eat it before you pay for it. And certainly don't eat it if you're not planning on paying for it. How many peanuts or how many samples have you eaten that you've not paid for? And this includes taking advantage of a sample stand. Here's a rule of thumb, and this is something that I'm guilty of too. Don't take a sample unless you think you might buy it. How about that? Don't take a sample. Okay, I'll have one. Just stop for a second before you grab the free little whatever it is and think to yourself, am I really interested in buying that? And will I buy that if it tastes a certain way? And if the answer is probably no, keep walking. Such people will be rewarded in the world, and the world, let's go back a bit, but people who are sincere and conscientious about what the Torah requires of them would never take a peanut without paying for it. They know it's stealing. Such people will be rewarded by the world. The world appreciates people who have self-control and refrain from intruding on the rights of others. They will tend to be more liked and respected. Also, they will never get into the kinds of trouble that people experience. Ultimately, the world punishes people who feel free to do whatever they want. Prisons are full of people like this. The knowledge of reward and punishment is one of the characteristics of this world that prepares a Jew for the Olam Haba. We have 3 ways to receive reward by obeying the Torah. One is the way the nations conduct themselves, their laws and their practices. Another is the behavior of our environment. Nature is made in such a way that it responds to people in accordance with the wishes of the Torah. If people observe the Torah, then nature is more benevolent to them. I told this to an older gentleman once, I've known him for quite a few years. And you know what he said to me? He said, this sounds like witchcraft. No, it's not witchcraft. And where do you think witchcraft got all their ideas? Do you think they just came up with their own concept? They've got none of their own resources to draw from. Witchcraft and the dark arts, whatever you want to call them, they have got none of their own raw materials. So stop thinking that that's a separate entity, that's on a sort of an alien planet somewhere. All witchcraft, all occult, takes from the Kodesh Baruch Hu and it twists it. Oh, it sounds like the dark arts. It sounds like the occult. Spoken like a truly ignorant elderly man. Yeah, the guy wasn't young, and the things that were coming out of his mouth, and this was a guy who, spent years in academia. And no matter what angle, no matter how I tried to talk to this guy, wasn't budging. For example, the Kuzari points out that if we count up the days of Shabbat and Yom Tov over the course of a year, we see that during 1/6 of our lives, we're physically resting. In contrast to nations of the world are busy running around. Even when they have a day off, they don't rest. As for us, we don't wait until we are broken in health. We start out from the beginning resting 1 day in 6. This clearly benefits our health and our well-being. So if you're using the Sabbath as a day of rest, that is, you're not going out there and working like a dog on that day, at the very least, you're going to live longer. You're going to live longer. Observing the Sabbath in whatever capacity you're able to do it. Even as a Noahide, you can choose to stay at home that day and to learn and to pray on that day. And it will extend your life. This is only an example. Everything the Torah is for our benefit. Everything in the Torah is for our benefit. And nature too is made in such a way that it responds to our behavior and rewards us if we follow the guidance of the Torah. So our Torah observance affects the weather. Our Torah observance affects the weather. And that doesn't always mean it's going to be a sunny day. We need the rain. The third area is the effect the Torah has on our character. This is very significant to our lives. We learn to be more moderate in our behavior and we gain more self-control. We learn midah, we learn character traits of thinking of other people. We learn the character trait of thinking of other people rather, not only of ourselves. We learn to avoid selfishness and we are careful not to harm others. That is why the Gemara places such emphasis on dinei nizikim, that is the laws of damages. And if you're reading the Torah every year, you'll remember when you go through these particular laws, they're quite extensive and exhaustive. We're responsible for any damages we cause to another person's property, even if it was not our intent. And so we learn that a Jew is supposed to be more careful in respecting other people's property. And we will leave it there. Which takes us to page 172. Thank you so much for joining me. The next topic is direct evidence from the Torah, which is part 10 of chapter 4. Listen, if there are any questions or comments, please put them down below. There is a link that I always put down in the description box down below that takes you directly to the website that are actually producing Duties of the Mind by Rabbi Victor Miller. They're not yet finished producing the entire 10-part volume set, and there is still time for you to contribute financially to the actual this once-in-a-lifetime work that is being made available to the world. Taking these audio cassettes from Rabbi Victor Miller during the 80s, sometime in the 1980s, and transposing them into a running narrative into the Chavot HaLevavot. And so it's up to you. If you want to donate any amount, you can have that in your book of memorial for all time, and it will be a benefit to you, not only in this life, but in the life to come. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.